Something is moving in the unseen. Something is shifting in silence, and most will not notice until it is already past. Even now, while the world walks under familiar skies and follows its ordinary rhythms, an invisible line is being drawn across hearts, homes, churches, and nations. It is not traced with fire or thunder, but with quiet, almost imperceptible movements of the soul. Lights are dimming in places that once burned bright. Voices that once trembled with reverence now echo with comfort. And in the hidden chambers of the heart, a separation has begun without announcement, without alarm, without spectacle. There is a phenomenon unfolding that cannot be captured by cameras or measured by instruments. It unfolds in prayers that grow colder, in worship that becomes routine, in faith that slowly trades devotion for distraction. It moves through crowded sanctuaries and empty rooms alike. It crosses borders without passports and enters lives without permission. Some feel a strange restlessness they cannot explain. Others feel an unsettling calm that lulls them into false peace. The air itself seems to carry both warning and invitation. Light still shines, but shadows lengthen. Truth is still spoken, but it grows harder to hear above the noise. And beneath it all, something ancient and purposeful is advancing with quiet certainty. It is a separation not of bodies, but of hearts. Two people can sit side by side, hear the same words, witness the same signs, and walk away in opposite directions without realizing it. One grows more awake, more sensitive, more responsive to the whisper of heaven. The other grows comfortable, confident, untouched by urgency. This division does not announce itself with conflict. It unfolds beneath polite smiles, beneath well-crafted sermons, beneath a culture that teaches that tomorrow is guaranteed and readiness can be delayed. Yet the soul knows when it is drifting. The spirit knows when the silence stretches too long, and in the stillness, a question hangs in the air where only the attentive will hear it. Across the earth, a subtle tension is rising. Some sense that the night is thinning. Others feel the weight of a coming dawn, but cannot name it. There are tears that no one sees and longings that no language can fully express. Many feel both drawn and warned at the same time, as if a door is slowly creaking open in the unseen, and with it comes both light and the shadow it casts behind. What appears to be delay is in fact preparation. What feels like quiet is in truth a gathering of breath before a final call. Nothing about this moment is accidental. Nothing about this hour is casual. What is unfolding is not chance. It is not coincidence. It is prophecy moving softly through the ordinary, and its next movement is about to be revealed. The quiet division has already begun its work, and its signs linger in the air like distant thunder that few interpret as a storm. Some feel unease without knowing why. Others feel nothing at all, and this numbness is itself a sign. The pause between warning and fulfillment is not empty space, but a window of mercy where the soul is still being called to awaken. Into this silent tension, the voice of Jesus still moves, not as an echo from a distant time, but as living breath pressing against the present moment. His words were never meant to remain locked in ancient memory. They were seeds planted for this exact season. He spoke of hearts that grow heavy with the cares of life, of people who continue building, buying, celebrating, and planning as if nothing unseen were shifting beneath their feet. He warned that the final hour would not arrive with universal awareness, but with sudden certainty. Many would be occupied with what feels normal while eternity knocks without noise. He described a world that looks awake but sleeps. Lamps still burning outwardly, yet running low where no one can see. He spoke of servants entrusted with much who slowly grow careless because the master seems delayed. Comfort becomes permission, delay becomes justification. And the longer the silence stretches, the easier it becomes to believe that the warning no longer applies. The heart tells itself that tomorrow is guaranteed, that preparation can wait, that vigilance can soften without consequence. This is how danger grows, without announcing itself. This is how false peace becomes the most effective disguise. Even now, his warnings unfold around us in living form. Churches filled with activity, but emptied of trembling. Songs lifted with excellence, but lacking surrender. Hands raised high, while hearts quietly negotiate with compromise. There is much talk of blessing and little hunger for holiness, much assurance of victory and little awareness of the battle. Many feel secure because they are surrounded by religious language, yet few pause long enough to ask whether their inner life still bends toward the voice of God in private. The greatest deception is not open rebellion, but subtle drift wrapped in spiritual vocabulary. Jesus did not speak these things to frighten, but to awaken. His tone was never panic, but precision. He pointed to signs not to satisfy curiosity, but to stir readiness. The tragedy is not that the warning was unclear. The tragedy is that it was too familiar. Repetition dulled its edge. Generations passed it down as story instead of summons. And now, as its shape begins to rise within the present moment, many struggle to recognize it because it does not arrive in the way they imagined. They expected noise. They received quiet. They expected spectacle. They received subtlety. Yet the pattern is unmistakable for those who watch with awakened hearts. Separation, advancing without conflict, invitation, moving without force, a narrowing path that feels both gentle and urgent. The words once spoken are no longer distant. They are active. They are unfolding. They are happening now. This is the warning, not shouted from the rooftops, but whispered through the current hour. And the danger is not that it is loud, but that it is soft enough to be ignored. When the unseen line begins to press against the soul, what emerges is not comfort, but exposure. What was once hidden beneath routine is brought gently, relentlessly into the light. This is the hour when attachments loosen without permission, when familiar supports feel suddenly insufficient, when the heart discovers what it was truly leaning on. Some experience losses they cannot explain. Others feel an isolation that no crowd can cure. There is a strange stripping that moves through relationships, plans, and certainties. What once seemed solid now trembles. What once felt indispensable quietly fades. This is not rejection. This is refinement. This is not abandonment. This is preparation. Refinement is never gentle on the flesh, but it is always precise in purpose. It is the fire that does not seek to destroy the gold, but to remove what is not gold. It is the wind that does not come to scatter the seed, but to separate chaff from what has weight. To the outer eye it looks like loss. To the awakened heart it is invitation. God has always prepared his own this way. Before rescue, there was the ark surrounded by ridicule. Before preservation, there was a door that closed slowly in silence. Before deliverance, there was a family pulled from familiar ground and hurried into the unknown before fire fell behind them. The pattern never changes. The chosen are not spared the pressure. They are shaped by it. In this hour, many are mistaking the pain of refinement for punishment. They interpret the shaking as rejection. They see the narrowing path as abandonment. But heaven is not discarding its own. It is drawing them closer. The sound of comfort fades, so the whisper of truth may finally be heard without competition. The noise recedes, so the voice of God may grow unmistakable. The heart learns again what it means to stand without the support of applause, without the security of crowds, without the illusion that strength comes from numbers. What remains after the shaking is what was always real. There is fire in the spirit now, not to consume, but to clarify. There is wind moving through lives, disrupting what was never rooted deeply enough. There is silence allowed to fall where distraction once ruled, so that the soul may rediscover the sound of its own longing for God. And in this quiet, many will feel alone even while surrounded. They will wonder why familiar voices no longer reach them in the same way. They will sense a greater distance from what once satisfied and a sharper ache for what they cannot yet fully see. This ache is not emptiness. It is the echo of a calling. If you feel this pressure, this narrowing, this quiet dismantling of lesser things, do not flee it. You are not being pushed away. You are being pulled inward. The refining does not mark the end of intimacy. It marks its beginning. The fire is not a verdict. It is a doorway, and those who learn to remain faithful in the unseen places, when no one applauds and no one affirms, are being prepared for what comes after the fire completes its work. What is built in this hour is not for display. It is for survival. Not every danger arrives wearing the face of darkness. In this hour, the most effective traps are wrapped in light, in comfort, in words that sound right and feel safe. The enemy no longer needs to roar when a lullaby can put the soul to sleep. He no longer needs chains when cushions will do. The great deception of this season is not terror, but tranquility without truth. It is the slow drift into spiritual sleep while the language of faith remains on the lips. Many will not fall away in rebellion. They will fade through comfort. There is a version of readiness that looks holy on the outside, but is hollow within. It attends gatherings, speaks blessing, affirms truth, and yet avoids the cost of surrender. It keeps the form, but resists the fire. It wears the garment without carrying the oil. The danger is not that it looks false. The danger is that it looks almost right, almost faithful, almost awake. This is how deception works in its most refined form. It does not shout lies. It whispers half-truths and invites the soul to rest before the race is finished. The stories have always warned of this hour. A woman steps out of danger but keeps her heart in what she left behind and is frozen between what was and what could have been. A group waits for the long night to end, all carrying lamps, all expecting the same arrival, yet only some have prepared for the delay when no one is watching. A faithful witness speaks to a community that believes itself rich and secure, yet is unaware of its own deep poverty. These are not ancient tales preserved for curiosity. They are mirrors held before the present moment. The enemy does not need to remove faith from the world. He only needs to dilute it. He only needs to convince hearts that proximity is the same as intimacy, that routine is the same as devotion, that familiarity is the same as faithfulness. He only needs to persuade the soul that tomorrow is guaranteed, that readiness can be postponed, that urgency is extremism, that sanctification can be negotiated. And once the soul accepts these whispers, sleep comes easily. The senses dull. The edge softens. The lamp continues to shine outwardly while the flame within slowly starves. False comfort is the softest weapon and the sharpest blade. It tells the heart that struggle is unnecessary, that discipline is outdated, that holiness is optional, that grace excuses rather than transforms. It sings peace when there is still war. It promises safety while slowly erasing vigilance. This is how the soul can be surrounded by spiritual language and still miss the living voice of God. This is how one can feel secure and still be unprepared. Do not measure your readiness by what you know or what you have done in public. Measure it by what you hunger for in secret. Do not measure your standing by your activity. Measure it by your obedience when no one sees. The greatest proof of deception is not confusion. It is confidence without consecration. It is assurance without tremble. It is peace that was never birthed from surrender. This is the hour to examine what soothes you when you should be alert, what distracts you when you should be listening, what comforts you into forgetting that the night is thinning and the dawn is near. The danger is not approaching with violence. It is already present as gentle sleep, and the call is not to fear, but to wake. Wake now, while the voice is still calling. Wake now, while the door is still open. Readiness is not built in moments of panic, but in daily choices that seem small and hidden. The oil that keeps the flame alive is gathered in ordinary hours, when no one is applauding, when no one is watching, when the soul chooses the quiet place over the crowded room. Vigilance is not anxiety. It is love that refuses to grow dull. Prayer is not a ritual to be checked off. It is the breath of a heart that knows its dependence. Fasting is not punishment. It is the body stepping aside so the spirit may hear more clearly. Silence is not emptiness. It is the doorway where the voice of God becomes unmistakable. The word is not merely studied to be understood. It is absorbed to be lived. There is a vast difference between religion and relationship. Religion can be loud and still leave the heart untouched. Relationship is often quiet, and yet it reshapes everything. One runs on routine, the other runs on encounter. One survives on memory, the other feeds on daily communion. The flame does not stay alive because it once burned brightly. It stays alive because it is continually tended. Ashes form slowly and drift settles quietly. If the heart does not return again and again to the place of surrender, even holy habits can turn into hollow forms. Reawakening is not dramatic for most. It begins with a gentle awareness that something has cooled, a subtle ache that refuses to be silenced by entertainment or productivity, a restlessness that no achievement can resolve. This is mercy calling. This is grace disturbing what has grown too comfortable. The heart is invited back, not by threat, but by the memory of intimacy. When the soul remembers what it felt like to be fully alive in God, compromise loses its charm. There was a man who built his days with precision and success. His calendar was full, his reputation intact, his speech filled with familiar spiritual language. Yet every night, something in him felt hollow. One evening, exhausted by the noise he created to avoid the silence, he finally knelt without an agenda. No eloquent words, no rehearsed phrases, just honesty. And in that simplicity, warmth returned to a place long cold. Nothing in his outward life changed overnight, yet everything within him did. The noise that once ruled him lost its authority. The flame did not roar back to life in spectacle. It quietly reignited in sincerity. There was a woman who had learned to hide her weariness beneath constant service. She gave endlessly, organized tirelessly, and was praised often. But in secret she was dry. She feared stopping because stillness would expose what she had avoided. One day, alone with no audience, she dared to stop. She wept without explanation. And in the stillness she had avoided for years, she felt a presence that did not demand her performance, only her heart. Her strength began to return, not as pressure but as peace. What had looked like devotion was transformed into intimacy. There was a young soul pulled by two worlds at once. One promised belonging without sacrifice. The other whispered of a narrow way that cost everything. The tension grew unbearable. One night, alone and trembling, the choice was finally made. Not with great confidence, but with fragile obedience. The path did not immediately grow easy, but the weight of double-mindedness lifted. Light did not explode into the room, but a quiet clarity settled into the heart. Direction replaced confusion. Hunger replaced distraction. The door did not slam shut behind the old life. It simply lost its pull. These are not rare stories. They are mirrors of what is happening everywhere in quiet forms. The separation is not only dramatic, it is deeply personal. It unfolds in bedrooms, in parked cars, in whispered prayers, in surrendered habits. The mercy of this hour is that the invitation is still open. The shake is not to crush, but to wake. The fire is not to reject, but to refine. The narrowing is not to exclude, but to protect. Do not wait for emotion to lead you back. Act before the feeling returns. Obedience often precedes desire. The flame follows the choice. Return to the hidden place even when the heart feels slow. Lift your voice even when it feels weak. Turn away from what numbs you, even when it feels comforting. The Spirit does not despise small beginnings. He honors small obediences that grow into mighty transformations. And understand this, the separation that is unfolding is not cruelty. It is mercy disguised as discipline. It is the shepherd narrowing the path because danger surrounds the open field. It is the doctor applying pressure because infection hides beneath the skin. It is love refusing to leave the soul asleep while time still remains. The line that divides is the same line that protects. Those who step toward the light will find that what felt restrictive is actually refuge. Those who resist will call the narrowing harsh, not realizing it was designed to save. This is why vigilance is not fear, it is affection. It is the heart saying, I refuse to drift from the one who called me. It is the soul saying, I choose the flame over the ashes, the whisper over the noise, the narrow way over the broad road. The coming separation is not meant to terrify the faithful, it is meant to clarify them. And those who allow themselves to be clarified now will not be shaken later when the dividing becomes visible to all. This is not a story of punishment. This is a story of mercy unfolding in slow motion before the final moment arrives. What feels like pressure is protection. What feels like narrowing is guidance. What feels like delay is patience, stretched to its final measure. Heaven is not indifferent to the earth. It is attentive, it is watchful, it is calling with restrained urgency. The separating that now unfolds is not born from wrath, but from love that refuses to abandon the unready to sudden darkness. Time is thinning. The signs are not hidden in spectacle, but written softly across ordinary days. The world continues as if nothing is changing, yet everything is being weighed. Hearts are being sifted, desires are being exposed, loyalties are being revealed. Some feel it as restlessness, others as discomfort, others as a strange homesickness they cannot explain. This is the language of heaven pressing against mortal awareness. This is not fear speaking, this is invitation. The hour is quiet, but it is not empty. The silence is filled with meaning. The pause is heavy with mercy. The call still goes out, not with force, but with faithfulness. Wake slowly if you must, but wake. Return gently if you must, but return. Do not measure the nearness of the end by the noise of the world. Measure it by the stirring within your spirit. The nouveau is closer than the distance between your next breath and your last distraction. The time is short, the signs are clear, the invitation is still open. The flame still answers when the heart turns toward the light. The oil can still be gathered by those who bend their knees in humility. The door is not yet closed. The voice is not yet silent. The mercy has not yet withdrawn. The shepherd still walks the edge of the narrowing path, calling his own by name in a tone only the awakened can fully recognize. Stay awake, stay pure, stay ready. Stay watchful in the quiet hours. Stay faithful when no one applauds. Stay tender when the world grows numb. Stay listening when the noise grows loud. Stay rooted when the wind increases. Stay lit when the night deepens. This is not a message of despair. It is a message of hope sharpened by urgency. You were not called to sleep through this hour. You were born for it. You were shaped for it. You were positioned for this moment of choosing, of watching, of waiting with burning hearts. The night is advancing, but the dawn is certain. The world may not see it yet, but heaven is already fully alert. The final call is not shouted in the streets. It is whispered in the soul. Blessed are those who still hear it. Blessed are those who still respond. Blessed are those who keep the flame alive while others drift into sleep. Heaven is watching, heaven is calling, heaven is near, and hope still stands at the door of every willing heart.